Over to updates from West Asia next. Now, the Israel-Hamas war has flattened large parts of northern Gaza, of course, killed over 18,000 and driven most of the population to the southern part of the besieged territory.
Some 1.9 million Palestinians, nearly 85% of Gaza's population, have fled their homes. The Israeli army said that it had uncovered the biggest Hamas tunnel in the Gaza Strip so far. The army said that the underground passage had formed part of a wider branching network that stretched for more than 4 kilometers and came within 1,300 feet of the Erez border crossing.
עד כה חשפנו יותר מ4 קילומטרים של תוואי המנהרה. זהו פרויקט דגל של החמאס. הוא מגיע לעומק של 50 מטר מתחת לפני האדמה. בתוך המנהרות מצאנו אמצעי לחימה רבים. זו לא מנהרה רגילה, זו עיר. עיר טרור מתחת לאדמה, שחמאס חפר ובנה במקום להשקיע כסף בתושבי עזה.
Now, the Syrian Defense Ministry said that Israeli airstrikes against targets near Damascus wounded 2 Syrian soldiers on Sunday. A UK-based war monitor said Israeli aircraft struck Syrian regime anti-aircraft defenses and positions of Hezbollah near Saida Zainab district, south of the capital.
An Israeli hostage mistakenly killed by soldiers in the Gaza Strip was buried on Sunday. 26-year-old Alan Shamrez was one of the 3 Israeli hostages shot dead by soldiers during an operation, even as they carried a white flag and cried for help in Hebrew.
The Israeli army also released images showing banners hung by the 3 hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli troops with the writing "Help 3 hostages" and SOS.
וגם הפעם ברחת כנגד כל הסיכויים ועשית כל מה שצריך כדי לחזור הביתה. מסכן שלי, מה עבר עליך באותם רגעים שכבר ראית את האור? הוא הפך לחושך. מי שהפקיר אותך גם רצח אותך אחרי שעשית.
Palestinian Health Ministry stated Israeli forces killed 5 Palestinians on Sunday morning at a refugee camp in the West Bank. The Israeli military said airstrikes targeted militants who had endangered soldiers, according to the Palestinian ministry.
More than 290 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces or settlers in the West Bank. Paris condemned an Israeli bombardment in Gaza, which caused the death of one of its foreign ministry officials who had taken refuge in the Rafah home of a colleague. Now, the ministry demanded Israeli authorities shed light on the circumstances of this bombardment as soon as possible, and it did not give the name or nationality of the official who had worked for France since 2002.
Pope Francis deplored the death of 2 women in a Catholic parish in Gaza, where he said defenseless civilians were targeted by shootings and bombings.
E non dimentichiamo i nostri fratelli e sorelle che soffrono per la guerra in Ucraina, in Palestina, in Israele e nelle altre zone di conflitto. L'avvicinarsi del Natale rafforza l'impegno per aprire strade di pace.
The head of the World Health Organization denounced the effective destruction of the Kamal Adwan hospital in the north of Gaza, adding that at least 8 patients had died. Tedros Ghebreyesus said a 9-year-old child was among the deceased patients.
Now the situation in Gaza, it's reached a critical point. People in the besieged strip are now reeling under hunger. The United Nations says deprivation is driving Gazans to seize the limited aid that's been arriving.
Well, this is, of course, in the region now. With global pressure growing about the worsening situation in Gaza, Israel is now allowing aid through Kerem Shalom border crossing, and that meets only a very small part of the need, and the situation remains dire. The UN says that the amount of aid which is reaching Gaza has been well below the amount of 500 trucks that it used to receive in the pre-war period. Israel has now committed to allowing about 200 trucks per day.
When first aid trucks entered Gaza on Sunday, panic and chaos gripped the scene. People could be seen chasing and climbing onto them, with some aid boxes even falling off the truck. Reports say about 79 aid trucks entered Gaza on Sunday. Thousands could be seen queuing up for food as volunteers from an organization called Gaza Emergency Relief distributed food to people.
People, and this is also something completely new, people are stopping aid trucks, taking the food and eating it right away. And this is how desperate and hungry they are. And I witness this firsthand.
The UN World Food Programme says half of the population in Gaza is starving. Many in northern Gaza have been cut off from supplies, while Israel's ground offensive has been hampering aid delivery in the south.
When it comes to the food security situation, we managed to do during the 7-day pause a survey, and what we found there was that half of the population are starving. The grim reality is also that 9 out of 10 people are not eating enough, are not eating every day.
All this while airstrikes have continued across Gaza. More than 18,800 have been killed and over 50,000 wounded. The UN says that around 1.8 million have been displaced, and this means that around 85% of the population is now living in cramped conditions in southern Gaza, impending death always lurking. Aid agencies fear that Gaza may soon be overwhelmed by starvation and death.